So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me here today. Happy Earth Day. My name is Lindsay. I'm the food educator here for the co-op, the Hanover Consumer Cooperative Society. And I've been our food educator here for about 5 years. And I'm really happy for you to join me today. So for this Earth Day, we are going to be making a green shakshuka. And shakshuka is traditionally a red dish. It's a Middle Eastern, North African dish that is traditionally made with tomatoes and peppers. And we nestle eggs into them. It's very flavorful. It's often served for breakfast, but because it's quite substantial, it's really a good dish for any time. Today, in honor of Earth Day, and because you can always change up a recipe, we're actually going to make a green shakshuka. So we're going to be using a bunch of different greens instead of tomatoes or peppers. However, like any recipe, recipes are guidelines, and you're the one who has to eat it. So always, always, always use the things that you like. If you don't like Brussels sprouts, don't use them. I don't care what the recipe says. You have to eat it. If you have some extra tomatoes and you want to throw them in there, absolutely. Especially if the tomato needs to be used instead of throwing it out, or hopefully you're composting, put it into the dish. It's okay. All right. One of the things, and I just mentioned it about composting, we just had Mark Morgan from the Lebanon landfill here at the co-op giving out grocery bags. 33% of what goes in the landfill is actually compostable food. And so really try, there's great composting programs around here, finding ways that we can keep compostable food out of the landfill will help slow down what goes in there. Because if a banana peel goes into the landfill, it will never decompose the way a landfill works. So let's keep compostable items out of the landfill by either using them up as much as possible or joining a composting program. We have a great one here. I bring my compost from home to the co-op in a drop-off program. And I also have a backyard one. All right, so we're gonna get started. Green shakshuka. So a few things. This is a good one. We want to get most of our prep done first. And hopefully you've done that, but if not, I did save a few of my vegetables to show you. And I'm gonna go to my cutting board camera here. So, let me just actually readjust a little bit. So, for my greens, and I'm gonna show you a couple things. I have baby spinach. Regular large spinach is fine. I have washed mine, and I just have it here draining. It doesn't have to be baby spinach. Again, adult spinach, it doesn't matter. But I'm starting with it raw. Brussels sprouts, and I'm going to show you how I shaved them down, and kale. And I'm also going to show you how to easily cut kale. So, I'm going to start with the Brussels sprouts. And here you can see I have mine really finely shaved because I was using one of my favorite tools, but it's also, some people are scared of it, which is a Japanese mandolin. I love this guy. It's handheld. And I'm just going to show you. So I washed my Brussels sprouts. I always want to check the outer leaves. If they're really floppy or look gross, just take them off. Okay? Compost. Chickens. Also, chickens love all of this stuff. And then on a mandolin, you just have to really watch for So I've got another one. So here again, like some of these leaves just kind of have a little bit of color, discoloration to them. I keep a big bag of fresh vegetables, and I give them to my neighbor's chickens, and at home, and I'm often gifted with an extra dozen eggs every once in a while, and they have the best yolks. So that's one tool. Not everybody is comfortable with a mandolin or has one, although I highly recommend them, and I think this guy's like $20. But you can also just slice them up. So again, I've washed them. I like a nice tight Brussels sprout. These little ones are great. And like here, maybe I might remove some of the, especially if any of the outer leaves are loose. Just take those off. And you can just really, using a nice sharp knife, thinly shave them down. What's nice about a Brussels sprout is that you can just leave the stem on, and if you notice, I just hold on to that. And it creates a perfect little handle, kind of, you know, my knuckles are out. And then once I get close to the end, I just stop. And so my Brussels sprouts, this is about a ½ pound, all shaved, gives me a nice amount. So my Brussels sprouts are done. For kale, there's a couple ways to prepare your kale. And some people say, you know, you'll read a recipe and they're like, rip the leaves off. So you can do that. You can go, this stalk is edible, but it can be really chewy and it takes a lot more cooking. So this is actually great if you want to, like, you can boil it down, you can blend it up and make some hummus or some pesto out of it. But again, today mine's going to go in the compost, and you can just rip the leaves off like this. I've washed my kale whole. If I'm doing a whole lot of it, I might rip it up and then put it through a salad spinner. When you rip the leaves off, you get nice, lots of little chunks, but these are also still too big. So one thing is, and I'm always looking for little stuff likes to hide in the leaves. So just make sure you really look through the kale. I left some of these leaves out. Often, sometimes if they're really discolored, you might want to just pick them off. But don't get too crazy, especially if it's kale out of your garden. Remember, if you are growing things organically, you might have some spots and stuff, and that's all right. This spider nest maybe, or, you know, this eaten leaf here, maybe not so much. But I just took those off. It wasn't a spider's nest. I lived in North Carolina for several years, and I remember going to the farmer's market one time, and the farmer, you know, I got this big bunch of kale, and I got along with it all of the lovely bugs and things that lived on the kale. And I remember this giant grasshopper being in the bag, and I was like, and the farmer was like, oh, don't worry, I won't charge you for him, and just sent me along my way, grasshopper and all. It was great. I let the grasshopper go. But you know, especially, and I love to buy things from farmers markets, just wash them thoroughly. All right, back to here. So with this, I've got nice little pieces. I kind of like to roll it up, always keeping track of where your fingers are. I just want everything to get cut down into slightly more manageable sizes. When it's easy to lose track of where your fingers are, and you don't have to do a lot of chopping. All of this is going to cook down. You can do, this is a curly green kale. You could use curly red kale. You could use lacinato or what's called dinosaur kale. All fine. The other way to prepare kale, and here's another leaf, is to just fold it in half. And you can take your knife and you can just cut it along the rib like this. This is especially if you want the leaves to remain whole. And then, you know, I've got sort of larger chunks. And the other way I like to cut this up is I just sort of roll it up in a cigar, like, just try to like get it under control. And then again, almost like you're chiffonading, and then give it a nice cut down the middle or so. I find that's plenty to get bite-sized pieces. All right, so my kale is ready, my spinach is ready, my Brussels sprouts are ready. I have just a couple more things to chop. I always keep a kitchen towel, keep a nice clean cutting board, clean your knife off often. I have a little compost bin right here. catch all my scraps. Okay. I am going to, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just chop up my garlic really quickly. So I've got some cloves of garlic. When measuring the spinach and greens, are they packed or no? That's a really great question. I don't really pack them down. I also don't measure them. I use one bunch of kale. This is an approximate couple cups of spinach. They cook down dramatically in a pan, and so I just bought a bag of spinach that looks approximate. So I don't I'm not going to get out a measuring cup and measure exactly. You can use a couple handfuls. That's the nice thing about cooking, is that you really just kind of use what you have, which is the answer that folks that like to measure hate. So, but no, generally if you're measuring greens, you don't need to really pack them down, but I never measure greens. So, okay. So, garlic. I like the peeled garlic. This is perfectly fine. The pre-chopped garlic in oil that you can buy, don't buy it. It's a rancid product. It's already been cooked. There's no nutritional value to it. So don't do it. But I hate peeling garlic, and the pre-peeled garlic is perfectly fine. We haven't started to release their medicinal properties, and they're still good. A lot of the medicinals and a lot of the value in garlic is in the odor, and it gets released within the first 15 minutes after it's chopped. So, and in the cooking, okay? So I've got about 4 cloves of garlic here, and I'm just gonna run my knife through it, slice them down a little bit, like this. And then I'm just gonna do a little rock and chop to get them nice and minced. Now, if you have a favorite garlic chopping, mincing tool, use it. Not opposed to, there's all sorts of gadgets out there, whatever it takes to get you to chop your garlic fresh, do it. I don't care. I tend to just use my knife because it's already in my hand. It doesn't take very long. And in my home kitchen, I live in a very small apartment, and I don't have a lot of room for a lot of gadgets. So I just don't keep them on hand. But whatever it takes for you is perfectly fine. So I've just chopped up my garlic. It's about 4 cloves there. I'm just going to get it into a little bowl. And cloves of garlic vary by size. So again, when we're talking about cooking, use as much or as little as you like. If you don't like a lot of garlic, don't use it. It's okay. There's no judgment. It says, I think the recipe actually says 3 cloves. I chopped up 4. And sometimes they're really small, and if they're really small, I might chop up 8. So it's really just sort of about feel and using as much or as little as you like. Okay. The last thing I'm going to prep right now is my my onion. So I have a nice red onion here, and again, I'll go to my cutting board camera. There's a lot of just extra skin on it. I'm only going to take off the stuff that's really apparent, like just really, really loose. I'm going to leave most of the skin on. And then I'm only going to use half. So the way we cut an onion is actually you cut the stem end off. So there's a root end and there's a stem end. And you cut the stem end. I'm just going to cut through there just a little. So now I have a flat surface. Notice I still have most of the skin on there. And now I'm going to cut straight down through the root. All right, and half of this I'm going to use, the other half I'm going to put in my onion keeper, which I've done something with. I don't know where it's at right now. One of the things you want to make sure of, especially red onions or if they have really papery skin, is that you keep your cutting board clear of onion skin. It cooks up like plastic. So now that I've got it cut in half, I can go ahead and peel it. And if I'm having a really hard time getting the peel off, I just take off a whole layer of onion. All right. So give your onion a feel. Make sure you didn't leave behind any like layers, cellular, like single cellular layers of onion skin. It's like onion ice. Make sure your knife is nice and clean. If you need to hone it, you want a nice sharp knife when you're chopping onion. And now we're just going to chop this up. We're going to dice it. So I do a vertical cut. And I teach knife skills. So if you are interested in honing your knife skills, we do it in person, and I do a virtual one every couple months. All right. And you're just going to get this to a nice dice. The hope is that you cut your onion efficiently, fairly quickly. Get some of these larger pieces out, and to create as little onion tear gas as possible. This last bit of root, you can chop off what you can, but the rest of it goes into the compost. All right, so my onion's done and ready. Got a couple larger pieces here. Whew. Starting to get my eyes a little. All right, so my main prep is done. Okay, a couple of other things that I'll chop up later. I might chop up a little bit of scallion or green onion for garnish. I have a little bit of feta I might crumble up, and I've already chopped up some parsley. But this is the main prep. Now, before we get started, you want a 10-inch pan or skillet, or thereabouts, okay? So I've got a nice skillet here. Olive oil or a neutral oil. It does not extra virgin olive oil. Save your extra virgin olive oil for your salads, for your dressings, for your drizzle on top. You pay extra money to have it be a cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. Don't cook with it. It's not good for cooking. It burns the fastest. It turns carcinogenic, and it doesn't hold up to heat very well. It breaks down. So you want a good neutral cooking oil. You can use olive oil, which is made with a heat process, just not extra virgin olive oil. Or I use like a safflower, a non-GMO'd canola, or grapeseed. Some people ask, what about avocado oil? Because it's the new it oil right now. And that's fine, but again, avocado oil is really expensive. It's a premium. You can use coconut oil, but remember, coconut oil has a coconut flavor. So I don't use olive oil for everything because it has an olive flavor. So I often go with a neutral oil like safflower. So we're going to use a little bit of that. And I probably will not measure out 1/4 of a cup. I'm going to just put some in the pan, okay? Let's talk about these spices before we get started. So, Aleppo pepper. Aleppo pepper is named after Aleppo, Syria, and it's actually from the Aleppo pepper. And what's nice about Aleppo pepper, and we do sell it here at the co-op, is that it's actually milder and not as spicy as like regular red crushed pepper. So you get good kick. You get some fruitiness from it. You get beautiful color. But if you don't like the heat, if regular crushed red pepper that you might get in your pizzeria or just that we're much more accustomed to tends to be a little bit too spicy for you, try Aleppo pepper. Let me show you in the. So this is it, and I mean it looks the same. If I can open it and see, I just bought a new container of it. And you'll find this very often in Middle Eastern and North African foods. It traditionally comes out of Syria. Obviously, there's that's still a war-torn area, so they're growing more this type of pepper from Turkey, but it is less spicy. The next one is coriander. Now, coriander comes from the coriander plant. It's the fruit of the coriander plant, or the seed of the coriander plant. The leaf of the coriander plant is what we call cilantro. Cilantro has a very peppery taste. Coriander has a much more fruity taste. It's a little bit citrusy. The seeds look like this. They're little, they're round, they're kind of globe. They've got like little stripes on them. If you really wanted to make this super flavorful, you can toast your own seeds and then put them in a spice grinder. And a spice grinder is literally just a coffee grinder that you do not use for coffee. Only use it for spices. That's one way to make a very flavorful dish. You can also just buy really good coriander and buy small amounts. I go through a lot, so I keep a jar, but in our bulk spices, you can buy small amounts and keep it fresh. And then, and it's often paired with cumin. So cumin, smoky, nice kind of mellow. So we're gonna use all of these. I have my chopped garlic. Okay, I am ready to go. I'm gonna get this onion in this little dish here. And we're gonna go over to my pan. Okay. So, all right. So I've got a pan here. You can use cast iron, stainless steel, whichever you'd like. Oops. I'm gonna get a flame going on underneath it. I'm gonna go for about a medium one. And then I'm gonna give it, again, it says 1/4 cup. That's a lot of oil, so I'm just gonna give a couple glugs. All right. The oil is going to, as it heats, it's going to thin out. It's going to become less viscous. And it's going to spread throughout the pan. I want to wait for it to heat and become shimmering. Things I'm looking for, little waves. I do not want it to be smoking hot. But I want us to start to see a little bit of a change in the oil itself. Again, not smoking. Once something is smoking, it's where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Same thing with oil. Once your oil is smoking, like little wisps, okay, but lots of smoke coming off of it, it is now carcinogenic. You have to start over. So, here we go. Just gonna get this going. And I'm just waiting. So, you can use your palm test, obviously, just a couple inches above it. When it starts to become a little uncomfortable, you can't hold it there for a really long time. Sometimes I like to use a popcorn test, like put a piece of popcorn in there. Once the popcorn pops, I know that my oil's ready. Fun fact, popcorn pops at 350 degrees. Please don't splash water into your oil as a good test. That's just dangerous. Okay. So, and the first thing we're going to do, I switched this recipe around a little bit because I like to bloom my spices. I always like to add spices to your fat, to your oil. The reason is that it starts to open up those spices. It blooms them. It also saturates the oil, and the oil is going to carry that flavor through the rest of the dish. All right, so a simple way to make things more flavorful is anytime you read a recipe and it's got dried spices especially, try to get them near the fat source. The fat will open up the molecules of your spices. It'll draw out the oils that are in them, and it'll also carry them throughout the rest of the dish. And you'll instantly make a change in your flavor impact. So that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna keep a close eye on it. So I'm gonna add in a teaspoon of my Aleppo pepper. Let me figure out which. And you'll see they'll start to sizzle just a little bit. And should be a really light sizzle, a really nice light sizzle, and I can almost smell it immediately. I'm gonna add in 3/4 or a teaspoon of coriander. Again, allowing that. See how it's not a hard sizzle. It's not dramatic. And this is perfect. So we use all of our senses before taste. It's really important to pay attention to what the food is doing versus like just reading a recipe. And then we're gonna do about 3/4 of a teaspoon of cumin. All right. If you can see in the, you can see around these spices, especially around the pepper, see all of that yellow that's coming out of it? That's what I mean. If you, adding the spices into, at this stage allows you to really bloom them, and you're starting to draw out. Now I love a wooden square edge spoon. So I'm just gonna move these around a little bit, kind of really get all this into my oil, and I've got really flavorful oil that I can cook everything else in. So I'm giving this another minute just so I can smell it. Careful breathing in too deep if you've got pepper in. It's a great way to, but this is such a mellow pepper and it's so beautiful. All right. So I can, as I add things to my pan, every time I add something to my pan, it's going to decrease the temperature. So I'm always playing with the temperature underneath my pan. It's easier on a gas stove like I have. At home, I have an old electric one. So a lot of times I'm lifting my pan off as the electric coils kind of adjust. You just have to work with the equipment that you have, okay? That's why knowing what your food is doing is so important. First thing we're going to add, Brussels sprouts, okay? I can pick out all these. I don't want them to burn. There we go. Nice little sizzle. Get these Brussels sprouts in there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to salt them. Salt by hand. Take a nice pinch of salt or two. And we're going to let these cook down a little bit. You'll see they almost like pulled up all of that oil immediately. So I'm just giving them a good toss, and then I'm going to let them sit here and cook. I can always add more oil. It's much harder to take oil out. Salt. Salt by hand. I use kosher salt. I put it in a container where I can get my whole hand in it. And know what your pinch size is. And it's an easy thing to do. If you take a pinch of salt, put it in your palm, know what that looks like, and then measure it. That's a good pinch. It doesn't even fill up half of a teaspoon of, this is a half teaspoon. So I know that my pinch is probably about 1/4 of a teaspoon, a really good pinch. And find a salt that you like and just use that one. Not all salts are the same. I teach a class on salt. All right, so we're just getting these Brussels in, give them a little mix, let them cook. Put your spoons down, let them cook. Take a sip of water if you need to just let these cook. We're just letting them cook down. You can see some whiffs of steam every once in a while. That's the water and the Brussels sprouts coming out. There we go. I like to always just spread things back out. Move your pan around depending on your stove. Mine's is not even, it leans. So it's always a good idea to kind of move it around a little bit. All right, we'll give this another minute. We'll give that about another minute, and then we're going to get ready to add in our onions. This feels opposite to me. I always start with onions first, so I like putting something else in the dish before the onions. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put in my onions. And get those all moving around. Oops, you see this one? I'll just chop it down real quick. Stirring occasionally, not consistently. We need to let the food cook. I don't have it on super high heat. I'm listening to the sound of this sizzle. And it's a nice, gentle one, which is right where we want to be. I have not yet added in my garlic. I have it here. I never add my garlic with my onions. I don't care what a recipe says. Onions take 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how hot you're cooking them. Garlic takes 30 seconds. They're often written as the same step, but they're never the same step. That's a truth that I repeat in practically every class I teach. We have to break the habit of saute your onions and garlic. Saute your onions, and then saute your garlic, and then add your garlic later. I like to have a good base underneath my garlic, therefore I don't burn it. So that's a good habit to start to break. Onions and garlic. It's written as the same step. It's a sort of a shorthand in cookbooks. It's kind of it's laziness in recipe writing, or it's written as one step, but chefs never do that. They never put them in together. Unless they're cooking at such a high heat that they're literally there for 30 seconds and other stuff goes in, but rarely. So I should not say never. All right, let's take a look at what's happening in our dish here. Just gonna give it a good little spin, flipping things over. We're waiting for these onions to kind of start to soften up a bit. They're gonna get translucent. Okay. Now when we start to add the spinach and the kale, this is a very shallow dish, and so it may spill over. Just give it a couple seconds, a minute or so, and it will start to cook down, okay? Yes, you can put a cover on the pan. That actually will hold in some of the steam, and we will be doing that here shortly as well, to help keep in some steam and get these greens to cook down. So you can do that all along if you have a good one, and I highly recommend a glass cover. I actually don't have a good cover for this pan. I need to get one. So I don't have one that fits, and if you can and you can afford like a good universal glass one, that way you can always see what's happening. But yes, it's a great question, Dawn. All right, onions are starting to get translucent. These Brussels sprouts everything's just cooking nice and gently. I'm gonna add my kale first. The kale is a little rougher than the baby spinach, so again, it's gonna take a little bit. You'll start to see some steam coming off of it. There's a little bit of water. You know, I didn't spin dry the kale. I leave some of the water on it when I was cleaning it. That also helps. It's going to create a little bit of this steam. And eventually I'll have enough room to fit all this in there. So, at this point, if you have a good lid, you might... What I can do is I'll put my sheet pan on top of it. This is one way. Actually, I think I have a lid somewhere I don't want to ruin my sheet pan. We'll let that cook and grab a lid. have one that's too big for the pan, but you can definitely cover it like this. That's gonna hold in some of the steam because there's water on the kale, and that will help it cook down. Oh, I forgot the garlic. Thank you. I got all excited about adding the kale. We'll add it in a second. It's not gonna hurt it for it to wait. Again, we want this garlic to like not burn, so we'll add it in once the kale is cooked down a little bit, and I can mix it through. Thank you. I got all excited. So if you've already added in your garlic, good job. Okay. See the kale starting to wilt a little bit? And if you can just sort of start to mix it in. That will help it to cook down. Just really gently pull some of the Brussels sprouts and onions on top of it. You can also, you can also kind of pre-cook spinach and kale in a microwave. You know, put it in the microwave with some water for like a minute. It'll cook it down a bit. So you see how it's starting to break down. It's starting to get much smaller. So everything's getting more manageable. So now, because I forgot, I'm going to throw in my garlic here. And just mix that through. There we go. Now we're going to do the same exact treatment with the spinach. Once I get this kale sort of a little bit, I get a little bit more space in my pan. And I'm just going to sort of, even with this baby spinach, kind of tear it up. If there's long stems, you can go through and break those off, but and again, as I add this, you can hear a change in the sizzle because the spinach has caused the temperature to drop a little bit. So I'll put a lid on it, help break it down. I have a little bit more to add once I have room. That over in there. Great. Now you're going to need about half a cup of water because we are going to add some water to this to get it kind of nice and juicy. So we want to get this spinach to cook down just a little bit, and we're going to season with some more salt. Not a ton. Remember, I have added about 2 pinches, which is about half a teaspoon so far. We don't actually have a lot of salt in this. So I'm going to go ahead and give another nice big, and it looks like a ton of salt that way when you season by hand, but and I can start to do the same process here, where I'm bringing the hotter cooked food on the bottom, sort of mixing it all. Get back in there. There we go. Steep. Now we're going to add in our half a cup of water. You'll really hear a sound change. And that's going to help to really cook all of these greens. So, you can see here, it almost went silent. And if you want to, you can turn it up a little bit, but resist the urge because you don't want it to burn. There's plenty of heat, and we're going to put the lid on this. So we're going to let that cook for, I'll check it in about 5 minutes. So And you know, you can always add more water. You can check it in less time if you want to. And this is a great time to sort of get your next, your garnishes and the next step set up. So, juice of half a lemon. Half a lemon is great. Fresh lemon juice is awesome. Sometimes they're not in season, and or you forget. I always keep real lemon juice, the kind that's just lemon, in my refrigerator in case I need that. I also think I have half a lemon though today. If you can and it's appropriate, you know, one little trick is to like zest your lemon. It's a great way. The zest is a product of every lemon that we often just discard. So if you can, take a second and zest it and save it. It might be a great garnish at the end to add even another bit of just a pop of zing. And this is a beautiful dish, but it is a little, it's got a lot of earthy notes in it. And so where we can add citrus always is nice for our tongues. Citrus and sour help to open up your taste buds. It actually activates your salivatory glands. Like just talking about lemon, my mouth is starting to pucker a little bit, and we create saliva that helps it, that aids in digestion. So we get after the juice and the lemons, and we forget about the lemon zest, and that's product that you've bought. So if you can, get a good microplane, and just you know, we're just getting the yellow part, and I just kind of drag it along like that. I hold it upside down, I put the microplane on top of the lemon, so I'm gathering it, and then I can just put it right here in a little dish. And it makes a great garnish, as well as a little bit of more zing once I'm ready. I'm gonna get a little bit more water in case I need it. And then I'll cut my lemon in half. I save naked lemons like this. I may use all of the lemon juice. It's just such a great way to add contrast and something. Make your dishes a little bit more interesting. Hit them with lemon juice. If they feel dull, definitely hit them with lemon or something citrusy. I'll wait on this. All right. I've got a couple more minutes. So I'm just gonna crumble up a little bit of feta for later. I love this, these little blocks of feta cheese that we have at the co-op. It's actually a really nice feta. I can open it, and don't use your knife to open packages. We're nice to our knives. I'm just going to break off a little tiny bit here, so I have some. This is great to serve on the side, you know, so if someone doesn't eat cheese, it's not in the dish. And I might get a green onion or so ready, so I'm just going to pull them out of the bunch, maybe. Now I also have my eggs here getting ready, and I have those out. I like to have them at room temperature. They just cook up better. So just cut off the feet and kind of cut off the tops, and then maybe I'll slice them down the middle here. Okay. All right, let's check on our shakshuka. You can see, oh, look at that. I'm collecting the steam water. You can see I've got lovely juice here. The spinach is really cooking down. The kale. Okay. So I'm trying to get everything really nicely mixed. All right. So I'm going to add in my lemon juice right now, or at least half of a lemon. Oops. Sometimes you have to cut the little nub off. Get my lemon squeezer. So I'm going to add this in. Okay. I don't think I'll need that extra water. And I'm going to mix that through. And then I want to give this a taste. At this point, I want to get my seasoning pretty close to being spot on. Because we're almost at the stage where we're going to add our eggs. And so by pretty close, there's still a little bit of evaporation that's going to happen. So you may not want to salt should enhance. You shouldn't really taste salt, but you'll know when it's not there. But also we have feta, which is salty, so there's a little bit more salt that's going to happen that way. So I'm just going to take a little bit. And see what it needs. And it needs a little bit, actually doesn't need more salt. It needs more zing. It needs a little bit more something interesting. So I'm going to add the other half of the lemon. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that through. So again, just right down here, just mixing it through nice and gently. Giving it all a moment. Keeping my, not turning up the heat, keeping the heat nice and mellow. Now because this is mine, I'm going to use the same fork. If I was sharing with company, I'd get a new little taster. I'm going to go ahead and taste it again. All right, caught me right back there. Made my face do something. That's how I like it. All right. All right. So now we're gonna add our eggs, and we're gonna do them one at a time. So with eggs, I like to always crack them into another bowl. Okay. I don't like to crack things directly into food because every once in a while I get shell in something or I bust the yolk. So I'm going to just grab a little silicone dish here and get a few things out of my way. Oops. I'm going to get my first egg ready. Okay. Get this off. And now over here on I want to just create, I'm going to try and first, I want to just even all the greens out, okay? Get them all in, even them out. This is kind of where, those of us that like to, you can get real OCD on this. Don't get super OCD, but just try to create a nice, even platform, okay? You should see a little bit of liquid popping up through. Nice, even platform. Get your dish centered. And then now you can use a spoon, you can use your wooden spoon. You're just going to create a little hole, 4 little holes. All right? We're going to add 4 eggs. I was thinking about duck eggs for this. I didn't end up getting them, but they would be really great. And this is the second green and egg dish that I've made today for Earth Day. So I'm just kind of creating holes where the eggs are going to land. It's kind of hard to create them and then push some stuff up on the sides there. All right, they're ready. So in goes an egg, right like that. Now I'm gonna move fast. So I'm gonna just leave the camera on one spot. Ooh. And in goes an egg. There we go. If you are very confident in your egg cracking abilities, you can do it right into the dish. But I, every once in a while, just put my thumb right through or miss the shell. All right, so this hole started to fill in a little bit. Create that again, get that egg in there. Perfect, they're starting to set. We just want to leave them. If you need to, you can do a little bit of pepper, like this, on top if you want. Maybe a tiniest bit of salt. You can put more Aleppo pepper. I'm gonna cover this up real quickly. I wanna get them to cook on top. So I'm gonna hit that cover. Okay. And then we're just about 4 minutes. It just kind of depends on how much you want your eggs cooked. So around 4 minutes, we'll take that cover off. So I'm just going to, I'm done with my knife, so I want to make sure to wash this right now. Take care of your knives. Spend money on a good chef's knife and then take care of it. The rest of the dishes can wait, but get your knife washed. Don't let food dry on top of it. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of I've got some accoutrements here. Got another minute or so for these eggs. So I've got all of those. Let me get this away. My cutting board out of the way. I'm done with that. Okay. There we go. I have an onion keeper somewhere. I'm not sure where it's at though. I have my dish. My cheese away. Are we about ready for eggs? Guess I should check it now. Let's take a look. All right, see they're just set on top. It's exactly what I want. I'm gonna turn this off. That's how I like my eggs. Cook them to the temperature you like. If you want more of a harder yolk, have a harder yolk. I like an over easy. I can put the lid back on real quick. It'll finish kind of setting. Now is the time, if you want to use your extra virgin olive oil, you can drizzle it on top. This is a perfect place for extra virgin olive oil, okay? Not in the cooking. Wait till you can really appreciate its flavor and the whole point of why you spend extra money on extra virgin olive oil. So as a finishing oil. Okay, not as a cooking oil. All right, I'm gonna grab, I have some beautiful pita here. I love buying this stuff. It freezes really well too. Nice chunk. Just gonna let this set for a second. Maybe and find an olive oil that you like. People ask me which one do you like. It kind of changes, but it's, again, they all have different flavors, and so finding one that you like is important. We used to have the oil tasting station. I'm not sure when that's going to come back, but hopefully soon. All right, let's take a look. We've let it set. I'm gonna take this lid off again. There we go. Beautiful. Now I'm gonna do my best here to serve this, get a nice spoon. I'm going to dig in. I want to get underneath the egg. I don't want it to break. Woo-hoo. Just kind of lay that in my dish like that. Maybe I'll get a little extra stuff. Let me see how I can, a little extra stuff. It's going to get it underneath my egg. Woo. There we go. Okay. So you can just take this, your pan, to the dinner table. I'm over here. I've got my dish. Maybe I'll drizzle with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Okay. I definitely know I'm going to want a little bit more lemon for me. Got my green onions. So I definitely love some feta. I mean, I am all about the toppings. I don't know about you all, but these are like, this is just going to add, all of these are going to add some salt. They're going to add some, they're going to like, and then I always love fresh herbs, right? A little bit of fresh herb. It just really adds a bit of freshness to the dish. If you wanted to, you could add in a little dash of like Hungarian or no, like smoked paprika for some color. And I'm going to dig in just a second. I have to take my Instagram shot because it's important. Yep. Oh yeah. Let's get one of the pan. Yeah, there we go. All right. Now we're going to taste it. So right here, I'm just going to go right on into the middle of that egg. That's what I like. So I've got, if you can see that, it's kind of jammy almost. It's not too raw. Perfect. Just going to grab a little bit of everything on my fork. And, oh yeah. And then my favorite way is a little bit of bread. And I put everything right on that. If I can eat by my hands, I will. The lemon's really coming through for me nicely. It says that Aleppo Pepper. I'm going to just take another bite. You can see it's dripping down my hand. Good time. There we go. And that is green shakshuka for everyone. Hopefully you've learned a few things, or at least you had a good time. And we do lots of other cooking classes here at the co-op. All sorts of stuff. Like I mentioned, there's knife skills. I do spice classes. I'll be doing a salt, fat, acid, heat workshop again. Hopefully this summer I'll be able to put one together where we do all of it in one day. But I also break it up into chunks. So that's where if you want to learn how to salt things properly and different types of salt, or what the things I was talking about, the oils, using the right oil at the right time is knowing what it's doing in a recipe, and learning how recipes are guidelines, and to cook based off of your preferences. So thank you all so much for joining me today, and happy Earth Day.